The former Labor Secretary, Robert Reich, wrote a fantastic article where he debunks the myth that poor people are lazy. He says the following, quote, "In reality, a large and growing share of the nation's poor work full-time, sometimes 60 or more hours a week, yet still don't earn enough to lift themselves and their families out of poverty. It's also commonly believed, especially among Republicans, that the rich deserve their wealth because they work harder than others. In reality, a large and growing portion of the super rich have never broken a sweat. Their wealth has been handed to them." So not only is he debunking the myth of poor people being lazy, he's also kind of flipping it on its head. And he's saying, if anything is true, it's the opposite. The rich people really are the ones who are lazy. So here's the fact that blew my socks off. Quote, "Americans who became enormously wealthy over the last 3 decades are now busily transferring that wealth to their children and grandchildren. The nation is on the cusp of the largest intergenerational transfer of wealth in history. A study from the Boston College Center on Wealth and Philanthropy projects a total of $59 trillion passed down to heirs between 2007 and 2060. What? 59 trillion with a T. Trillion. So the kids of super rich assholes just get handed $59 trillion, and the argument from the right is, these poor people are lazy. What? No, see, when you listen to numbers like this, you start to understand, you start to conceptualize exactly what the wealth distribution really looks like, not only in America, but around the world. Remember that fact that we discussed from some report a while ago? They found that the richest 85 people in the world, 85, so that they could fit on one of those double-decker buses, they said in the article on it, they have more money than the bottom 3.5 billion. 85 people have more wealth than half of the world. When you think about that, it becomes obvious. Like, oh, I see what's happening here. This isn't like a fair game where we all start on the 0-yard line, somebody shoots a gun in the air, and we start sprinting, and this guy won. I guess he's just better at the game of life. Here's a little bit more money. That's not the way it works. The game is rigged. It's not like those 85 people just worked that much harder than somebody who makes $20,000 a year, somebody who makes $1,700 a year in India, or somebody who makes $53,000 a year in France. No, that's not the case. It's not a link between this person worked hard and they get X amount of money. No, it's not a meritocracy. We have a system that's essentially rigged, and we have elites who have rigged the game. 59 trillion is the number. 59 trillion. Is there anybody who can hear that and defend it and say, I believe on principle that all that money should be passed down to the Paris Hiltons of the world? So I want you to think about it like this, man, when you try to figure out who's on your side and who's not on your side. At the same time that this is the reality of the world that we live in, that the rich are being handed down $59 trillion for doing nothing, you have Republicans who are fighting to repeal the estate tax. You know what the estate tax is? It's a tax on people with estates. Do you have an estate? It's a tax for people in estates who die. So you're taxing super rich dead people. That's who you're taxing. If there was ever a group of people to tax, as Bill Maher says, that's like the number one group of people who we should tax. Really, really, really rich dead people. And it's not like these, the kids are going to get nothing. They're still getting multiple millions of dollars even with the estate tax. But what do the Republicans say? Not enough. They just passed in the Senate. They just passed a repeal of it. They just passed it. Well, now hopefully, and I think Obama's going to veto it, which is good. But you see how these guys would run the economy. You see who these guys are working for. And remember, at the same time that they scream about how they're against welfare and, you get lazy, if you're handed that much money. Well, the amount of money that poor people are getting actually doesn't make them lazy because the safety net is meager. It's just enough to get by. They don't want to stay in that situation. But you know who does want to stay in the situation? The kids of the mega rich. So the people who are really arguing for welfare that disincentivizes work, it's the Republicans. The same time that they pretend, oh, we're so macho and against welfare and you better pull yourself up by your bootstraps. What are they doing behind the scenes? They're like, oh yeah, we only mean that for black people and Hispanics and liberals. Our buddies on Wall Street, the elites, in giant corporations, ExxonMobil, Walmart, here, you can raid the Treasury. We believe in welfare for you. We believe in welfare for you guys and for the kids of the mega rich, but just not for those evil Democrats.